Yeah.
And once he's on, he's so extremely on. So I'm gonna actually go for Parham on this one.
Well, Parham might be on, but we've got Jan and Jan-Krzysztof in this one. So we have, but then we have a London system. How could they do this to us? How could you give us this heavyweight clash and not get us into some sharp Sicilian where both players are sacrificing all their pieces, going for checkmate? Instead, Jan-Krzysztof, he's kind of like living up to his current look. He's professorial. He's saying, I'm going to play for small advantages, maybe gain a little space, control some key squares. Where's that rebellious Jan-Krzysztof? Someone get him like a long hair, rock and roll. I want them to start playing some sharp Sicilians. But now that we're here, and I have no other choice but to talk about this position, it's an opening that White is trying to kind of minimize risk. And White has, Jan Nepomniachtchi doesn't mind playing risky chess. He pushed his pawn 2 squares. The reason I reacted that way is whenever you push your pawns forward, they become easier to chisel at. So White can push the pawn in response, immediately putting pressure on what could be considered an overextended pawn. So it looks like Jan-Krzysztof, he just castled. Duda's got his king safe. Nepomniachtchi, he's looking to do the same. But for Mr. Duda, I keep wanting to say Jan, but they're both, one's Jan-Krzysztof, one's Jan. But here, Duda's bishop here stares in both directions, so that piece is looking pretty good. The bishop over here, for black, is sidelined, not really doing all that much. It does take away this starting square from the white queen in case you wanted to regroup, but I feel like, yeah, at the moment, both sides have a very solid foundation of their position. I like Jan Nepomniachtchi's clock management. I don't like that choice by him. He gave up his bishop, and now White is going to try to get maximum control over the light squares. Don't be surprised if something like this happens at some point where White just aims for the black queen side. So I think that, so Jan Nepomniachtchi, I don't know if he's just playing for a win because his tiebreaks are bad. Like, that might be part of his calculus, is that his tiebreaks are bad because he lost the first game, so he's going to try to beat the players who he fears will continue scoring points.
I'm going to say something slightly politically incorrect. You do your country or your country such injustice by pronouncing names so well, Robert. Because usually Americans tend to Americanize every name, and I've been paying attention to this all over. You have such specific, good pronunciations of the different names here, so I'm impressed with that.
I appreciate that, and it's something, whenever I commentate, especially if I get to speak to players beforehand, I ask them to pronounce their name for me. And because I don't want to mispronounce it, I think the least that I can do, these players all speak multiple languages, right? And they have to speak English in interviews. I get to speak my native language at all times, right? You're speaking English and Norwegian is your first language, right?
Yep.
So I'm appreciative of that. I don't take it for granted. And the least I can do, which is very minimal effort in most cases, is trying to properly pronounce. And I mispronounce names. I apologize both for my history of mispronounced names and my future of doing so, but I will always try my best. So I appreciate that.
We see a slight advantage still here for Duda, but I just keep looking at the clock. Just 1 minute seems so significant at this portion. I feel that's what we took out of EWC when we had this the first time. It was just Magnus realizing that this part of the game is where he gets decided, and it's usually about being that minute ahead on the clock.
And Jan Nepomniachtchi was pretty much born with that thought. Like, he does in classical chess as well. He's speedrunning, and he's a gamer. He loves all sorts of games. But, there's got to be a sacrifice. The bar always helps in this case. I might be starting with this move here. It's actually not the way that Jan Nepomniachtchi would have thought the sacrifice. Duda spots it instantly. He doesn't have the bar at his disposal, so he's just spotting tactics where they're available. The point, everyone, is that this pawn right here, that's an overloaded piece. I'm going to put it in yellow, but really it's red. It's got a stop sign there because rook takes pawn is going to devastate Jan Nepomniachtchi. If the pawn captures, well, that's pretty simple. The rook takes, hitting the queen, hitting the knight. If the knight takes, I am still going to pull a Levy-Rozman, Gotham chess, and sacrifice the rook! Because once that rook slams down on that square, this poor f7 pawn, often considered the golden pawn in chess, is protecting the king, it's protecting the center, and once that pawn is removed from the equation, down goes the knight that's going to land on where the bishop is, where it's going to capture, and then down goes the black king. So for Jan Nepomniachtchi, we were praising his speed, the way he's able to maintain a lead in the clock, but his blessing is his curse. Sometimes he plays too quickly, and this was a pretty critical moment.
Critical moment. It was also in the candidates day. It was 4 minutes for each player with 7 moves to play. Well, one person managed to maneuver a lot better. Yavukir Sindarov has won the game against Pragnananda.
Wow.
And that is massive for this candidates tournament as well. But look at here.
I mean, I'm looking at this game. I will table my thoughts about Sindarov because I do think that you asked me this question. A lot of people have asked, in general, who is a dark horse, who can really do this thing. And, in this game, it looks like Jan-Krzysztof Duda. He won. Game over. We know what happened. The candidate still has, my math serves me well, 11 rounds to go. And, in this tournament, we still have games, Jose Martinez, Hans Niemann. But for Sindarov, he's on the rise. And that means you can't place his level.